family had been searching for a new beginning, a place where they could escape the noise of their old life. Their chosen home seemed perfect, nestled in serene isolation, surrounded by dense trees that whispered in the wind. It was quiet, idyllic even, with the kind of calm that could soothe weary souls. They didn't realize that something unseen had been watching, waiting patiently for their arrival. The first few weeks felt like paradise. The days were filled with fresh air and golden sunlight, while the nights offered the kind of deep, undisturbed silence that urban life could never provide. Yet beneath the surface of this tranquility, something was stirring. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly, an occasional feeling of being watched when they ventured outside, the faint rustle of leaves when the air was still, or the peculiar way shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally at dusk. They brushed these off as quirks of their new environment, remnants of overactive imaginations adjusting to rural living. Then came the doorbell camera, a modern touch to their rustic home. At first, it seemed like a helpful addition, catching mundane moments, the delivery of a package, a stray cat wandering the porch. But one night, everything changed. The camera detected motion near the door, and the footage it recorded was unlike anything they could have expected. A figure passed through the frame, human in shape, but unnaturally elongated, its movements slow and deliberate, as though it was aware of being watched. They replayed the footage, convincing themselves it had to be a trick of the light or a camera glitch, but the uneasy feeling it left behind began to grow. As days turned into nights, the small disturbances escalated. The camera picked up faint whispers that seemed to circle the house, too low for the human ear to hear but chillingly clear in the recordings. Once, it even captured a single shadow standing motionless at the edge of the property before melting back into the trees. The family began to feel trapped, as if their dream home was a cage. Every night they went to bed hoping for peace, but each morning brought new signs that whatever lingered outside was drawing closer. The Thompson family moved to their quiet Alabama home in the summer of 2018. Nestled on the outskirts of a small town, their house stood at the edge of a dense forest. It was a picturesque setting with towering pines, chirping crickets, and the occasional rustle of deer wandering through the underbrush. Life in their new home was peaceful until the doorbell camera was installed. Initially, the device was meant to provide a sense of security. Kelly Thompson, the matriarch, wanted to ensure her teenage daughter Emma and husband Mark were safe, especially since their property was so isolated. The camera, equipped with motion detection and night vision, offered a perfect view of their driveway and front porch. For the first few weeks, it recorded mundane events, the mailman's daily deliveries, a stray cat snooping around, and the occasional package thief who never returned after seeing the blinking light of the camera. Things began to change one October night. Kelly had just settled into bed when her phone buzzed with a notification, motion detected at the front door. She opened the app, expecting to see another curious raccoon. Instead, the footage showed something else entirely. A shadow moved across the frame, but it was unlike any animal she'd ever seen. It was tall, humanoid, and unnaturally thin. Before Kelly could discern its features, it vanished into the darkness. She showed the footage to Mark, who dismissed it as a trick of the light. Probably just a glitch in the system, he said, but Kelly couldn't shake the unease creeping over her. The following night, the camera captured more bizarre activity. This time, it was a faint, low hum that seemed to come from the forest. The sound was barely audible, but the camera's microphone picked it up. Kelly replayed the clip several times, trying to identify the source, but she couldn't. Mark, again, brushed it off. Maybe it's the wind, he offered, though his tone was less confident this time. A week later, Emma woke her parents in the middle of the night. She claimed to have heard whispers outside her bedroom window. When Mark went to investigate, he found nothing but the stillness of the forest. However, the doorbell camera had recorded something. At 3:33 a.m., a figure appeared at the edge of the driveway. It was tall and shrouded in shadows, its features obscured. The figure stood motionless for nearly 5 minutes before turning and disappearing into the woods. Mark decided to install additional cameras around the property, hoping to catch clearer footage. He also set up motion-activated floodlights to deter any intruders. Despite these precautions, the activity intensified. The whispers Emma had heard became a nightly occurrence. Sometimes they seemed to come from the forest, other times they were right outside the front door. One particularly chilling night, the family was awakened by a loud banging on the door. The doorbell camera's feed showed an empty porch, but the banging continued. Mark opened the door wielding a baseball bat, but no one was there. Yet, as he stepped outside, The camera captured something horrifying, a pale face peering out from the darkness of the woods. Its hollow eyes seemed to stare directly into the lens before retreating into the shadows. Desperate for answers, Kelly began researching the history of their property. She discovered that the forest behind their home had a dark past. In the late 1800s, it had been the site of a settlement known as Black Hollow. The settlers mysteriously vanished, leaving behind only rumors of rituals and strange occurrences. Local legend claimed that the forest was cursed, a place where the veil between the living and the dead was dangerously thin. Kelly shared her findings with Mark, who dismissed the stories as folklore. But even he couldn't deny the escalating events. The doorbell camera began malfunctioning, recording distorted images and eerie noises. One night, it captured a single frame that sent chills down their spines, a group of figures standing at the edge of the forest. They were tall, with elongated limbs and faces obscured by darkness. The figures appeared to be watching the house. The Thompsons reached out to their neighbors, hoping for some explanation. To their surprise, they weren't alone. Other families living near the forest reported strange occurrences, lights flickering, doors opening and closing on their own, and the feeling of being watched. One elderly neighbor, Mrs. Carter, shared a particularly chilling story. She claimed that years ago, she had seen shadowy figures in the woods, always appearing at 3:33 a.m. They're not of this world, she warned. Whatever you do, don't go into the forest at night. Despite the warnings, Mark decided to investigate the forest during the day. Armed with a flashlight and his phone, he ventured into the woods, following a trail that led to a clearing. What he found there left him speechless. The clearing was filled with strange symbols carved into the trees, each one depicting distorted faces. At the center of the clearing was a circle of stones, blackened as if by fire. Mark took photos and quickly returned home, his resolve shaken. When he showed the photos to a local historian, the man's face turned pale. He explained that the symbols were ancient, possibly linked to warding rituals meant to keep something trapped. You shouldn't have gone there, he warned. You might have disturbed whatever was being contained. That night, the activity reached its peak. The doorbell camera's motion sensor activated at precisely 3:33 a.m., but instead of recording a clear feed, the footage was pitch black. Moments later, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the house, followed by frantic knocking on the front door. The family huddled together, too terrified to move. The knocking grew louder and more insistent before suddenly stopping. When they reviewed the footage the next morning, they found a single frame, a distorted face pressed against the camera. Its features were grotesque, with hollow eyes and a wide, toothless grin. Unable to endure the terror any longer, the Thompsons decided to leave. They packed their belongings and moved in with Kelly's sister in another town. The house was eventually sold, but the new owners didn't stay long. Within weeks, they reported similar disturbances. The doorbell camera recordings were erased, but the legend of the haunted forest lived on. Locals claim that if you stand on the Thompsons' former porch at 3:33 a.m., you can hear whispers calling your name. Few are brave enough to test the tale, and those who do often regret it. The forest remains a place of fear, its secrets buried in the darkness, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to stumble upon them. In the end, the family realized they couldn't stay any longer. The house that once promised a fresh start had become a living nightmare. With heavy hearts, they packed their belongings and left, vowing never to look back. Yet the memories lingered like shadows, a constant reminder of the things they couldn't explain. Even now, locals whisper about the strange happenings in the area. The house stands empty, its windows like hollow eyes watching the forest. Some say the doorbell camera still activates at night, capturing fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures that appear and vanish without a trace. What do you think truly haunted this family? Was it the echoes of an ancient curse, restless spirits, or something even more sinister? Share your theories in the comments below. If this story left you chilled, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more unsettling tales that will keep you up at night. Your support helps us bring you the stories that linger long after the lights go out.